everyone. Welcome back. Today, we're diving into something that I think can be a game changer for anyone learning a language. How to study smart, not hard. We're talking about ways to make language learning more efficient, so you can see real progress without feeling totally overwhelmed. What do you think? Ready to chat about some tips?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people feel like they have to study for hours every day to improve, but really, it's about how you study, not just how long. I always tell people that if you're using the right methods, even 20 or 30 minutes can make a huge difference. So let's start with a favorite strategy, setting clear goals.
Yes! Goal setting is such a powerful tool. When we know exactly what we want to learn, our brains can focus on that specific skill or topic, which makes it easier to remember. So instead of just saying, I'm going to study English today, it's more effective to say, I want to learn how to talk about my daily routine, or I want to learn how to order food in a restaurant. Do you have any examples of goal setting that worked for you?
For sure. When I was learning Spanish, I set small, focused goals like learn how to introduce myself and ask basic questions. It was amazing because after just a few sessions, I could actually have a simple conversation. That made me feel so motivated to keep going. And having that specific goal kept me from feeling lost in the language. I knew what I wanted to achieve each time I studied.
Exactly. Plus, goals help us see progress, which keeps us motivated. And once you have a goal, you can pick the right materials. This brings us to another tip. Using materials that are just a bit challenging, but not too hard. You know, like watching videos or reading articles that are slightly above your level. When it's too easy, we get bored, and when it's too hard, we get frustrated.
Yes, that's so true. I remember I tried reading a novel in French and it was way too difficult. I felt discouraged because I couldn't understand most of it. So, I switched to reading short stories with simpler vocabulary, and that worked so much better. I was still learning new words, but I could follow along without constantly stopping to look things up.
Totally relatable. And the nice thing about finding the right level is that it builds confidence. When we can understand most of what we're reading or listening to, it feels like, hey, I'm getting this. Which leads perfectly into another smart tip. Focusing on what's relevant to you. If you're learning English for work, then focus on business vocabulary or phrases for meetings. Or if you're learning it to travel, focus on phrases you'd use in a restaurant or airport.
Yes, relevance makes learning feel much more useful. It reminds me of how I learned German for a trip to Berlin. I didn't need to learn complex grammar or academic words. I just needed to know how to ask for directions, order food, and say thank you. So instead of spending hours learning grammar rules, I practiced common phrases, and it made the trip so much more enjoyable.
That's a great example. And focusing on specific areas really does make a difference. Okay, another tip, one of my favorites, is learning through context. Instead of memorizing single words, try learning phrases or sentences. This helps you remember vocabulary because you know how to use it. For instance, instead of just learning the word meeting, try learning it in a phrase like, I have a meeting tomorrow. That way, it sticks better.
Absolutely. Context is key. It's also a way to learn more naturally. When I was learning Italian, I used to write down phrases I'd hear in shows. Like, instead of just learning the word arrivederci, I remembered the whole phrase, ci vediamo, arrivederci. See you, goodbye. It felt so much more natural when I practiced speaking, almost like I was already familiar with the flow of Italian conversation.
I love that. Shows and movies are such a fun way to learn because you hear words in action. And if you can use subtitles, it's even better. It gives you a visual and helps connect what you hear with what you see. Now here's another technique that works wonders for smart studying. Reviewing regularly but not cramming. Our brains actually remember things better when we review a little bit at a time over several days. It's called spaced repetition. So instead of learning 100 new words in one day, spread them out over a week and review each one several times. It sticks better that way.
Yes, spaced repetition is so effective. There are even apps that use it, like Anki or Quizlet, where you can make flashcards and review words just as you're about to forget them. This technique works well because it's like we're training our memory little by little instead of trying to force it to remember everything at once.
Exactly. And it's way less overwhelming than cramming. Speaking of which, another smart study tip is taking breaks. Our brains need time to rest and absorb information. So studying for hours without a break can actually make it harder to remember things. Short, focused sessions with breaks in between can be more effective than studying for long, tiring hours.
Absolutely, breaks are so important. I usually do 25 minutes of focused study, then take a 5-minute break, something like the Pomodoro technique. During those breaks, I might go for a walk, grab a snack, or just stretch a bit. When I come back, I feel refreshed and ready to keep going. It's amazing how much more I can remember when I'm not forcing myself to keep studying for hours.
Yes, and breaks make learning feel more enjoyable too. It's like a reset button for your brain. Plus, we retain more information when we're not exhausted. Another great method to study smarter is practicing speaking right from the start, even if you only know a few words. Many learners wait until they're fluent before speaking, but really, practicing early helps build confidence and helps with memory. You can start with just saying a few sentences to yourself or repeating phrases you hear.
That's such a good point. I used to practice in front of the mirror just saying basic phrases like, "Hello, my name is," or "I'd like to order." It might feel silly at first, but it really does build confidence. And then, when you do have a chance to speak with someone, it feels more natural because you've practiced.
Yes. And if you can practice with a friend or even join a language exchange, that's amazing. Speaking with real people, even if it's just a simple conversation, makes language feel real and alive. You're not just learning words, you're using them.
Exactly. And it's also so motivating. When you can have a small conversation, it makes all the studying feel worth it. So, to recap, studying smart means setting clear goals, using the right materials, focusing on relevant vocabulary, learning phrases in context, reviewing regularly, taking breaks, and speaking as much as you can, even if it's just a few words.
Absolutely. Language learning doesn't have to feel like a huge chore. When we study smart, it becomes something we can enjoy and fit into our daily lives. So to everyone listening, try out some of these techniques and find what works best for you. Remember, It's all about progress, not perfection. Small steps every day can lead to big improvements over time. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope these tips help make your language learning journey easier and more fun. Until next time, keep practicing and remember, study smart, not hard.